And the live stream is starting. So let's start with an update of the things that we have been doing in the past couple of weeks. George, why don't you start with all the troubles that you had around adaptivity and the decision to disable lip sync at the end of it and all that?
Oh, yeah. So three major things. We worked a little bit on Firefox earlier in the past couple of weeks. We added there was a very serious problem where bitrate allocation was completely broken if a single Firefox participant was in the call. Everything was getting messed up. That got fixed by adding multi-track bitrate control in the bridge, which sounds fancy, but it's not. We fixed the hack. We removed the hack that we had in the bridge to allocate bitrate for the first track of a specific participant, and Firefox has multiple local tracks because of unified plans. So yeah, that was broken for Firefox. By adding multi-track bitrate control, we mitigated this. So that's one thing. Then, yeah, we took a decision to disable lip sync because of the way that Chrome synchronizes streams. And actually, it's not only Chrome. This is going to be the standard apparently. It synchronizes streams based on the RTP playtime, which, in other words, based on the you have the RTP timestamps, you have a specific offset, you have a specific timestamp, and based on the frequency, you can calculate how much time a specific stream has played. And this is how they synchronize streams. Um, so this creates problems with our implementation, and we don't have the time right now. We don't have bandwidth to fix this issue, so we're going to disable lip sync because it's horribly broken and it probably creates more problems than it solves.
Including on lip sync itself.
Specifically, yeah, including the lip sync itself.
Lip sync makes lip sync worse.
Yes. um, yeah. So that's another thing. And later the past week, we have implemented, we have tuned our bitrate allocation algorithm to allocate high frame rate to favor higher frame rates as opposed to higher resolutions for the on-stage participant, and this is currently in a pull request, and it's being reviewed by Boris.
Tell us how this works now, George.
So yeah, you're trying to allocate for the on-stage participants. We have 5 granularity levels. So either you get 720p at 30 FPS, then you go to 360p at 30 FPS, then you go to 180p at 30 FPS, 15 FPS, 7.5 FPS, and well, nothing, which is actually 6 granularity levels. So instead of going, the change here is that instead of going from 720p 30 FPS to 720p 15 FPS, you favor the frame rate. You don't want to drop the frame rate. You drop the resolution and you go to 360p at 30 FPS. This is actually something that we need to determine whether it improves the user experience. Maybe we need to fine tune it a little bit more and allow, I don't know, maybe 15 FPS could be reasonable. So maybe before we drop the resolution, we can drop down to 15 FPS. But for now, this value is fixed, and we drop the 2 lower temporal layers for the 720p stream and 360p stream. What else?
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah. And basically, once this PR gets merged, we think we're in a pretty good shape. On the adaptivity side, so we're probably going to push out a stable build there and have a new deployment on Jitsi likely tomorrow. Maybe even today, who knows? All right, thank you very much, George. Damien has been working on solving a number of Jitsi issues. Damien, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
So yeah, I've been working mostly on Jitsi and fixing some stuff there. There were a number of problems like leaking threads, because when you launch the Jitsi in translator mode, the audio translator was not closed. There was some issues with in a situation where peer-to-peer is enabled and there is one participant in a room and you join the Jitsi participant. Jitsi basically receives 2 session initiates and one of them is faulty, and this leads to leaking protocol providers and memory, basically. Yeah, so these are the major issues. So Jitsi is now in a good shape, and I think all of the problems are fixed, and we will probably push also a Jitsi to the stable repo for the first time.
And that is great. By the way, there seems to be a problem with dominant speaker indications in this call. Is anyone else seeing this?
Yeah, I was just playing around with the settings to see if it was me, but it's you too, apparently.
Yeah, and another observation is that we don't have bitrate information for the for the remote participants. So, which leads me to believe that there is something wrong with the data channel messages, maybe. Like, I don't know though. We should have bitrates for the thumbnails. So.
Right. Let's investigate this at the end of the call. Pavel, would you like to talk a little bit about the new stats that you added that we're now sending for whoever is following the stats backend, who's using the stats backends?
Yes, so actually we're not sending them yet because they are still in the PR review process. But we started logging stats like bitrate, bandwidth, packet loss, and frame rate and stuff like that separately for JVB and peer-to-peer connections, and we log them to analytics. We plan to make some comparison between peer-to-peer and JVB modes.
All right. Thanks very much. And potentially we're looking into rewriting, which is something that Pavel and I was discussing, rewriting Jibri in Java so that it would use the same components as the rest of the Jitsi infrastructure, which should make it easier to handle for people that are familiar with the rest of the Jitsi project. So it's not going to be, I mean, the current implementation is obviously totally valid, but it's all about getting increasing the familiarity, lowering the friction barrier. All right. So Lenny, Jana, and Christo have been working on various aspects around the user interface. We're getting close to final versions of our call interfaces. Could one of you guys maybe talk a little bit about this? We're now using external services that you can configure to consult numbers, dial in numbers, and show them as part of the interface. And to admit, I actually lost a little bit of track of which one of those we have already merged and which are still in PR review. But
so we have merged the. It's Jana. We have merged the incoming call UI. It's not enabled yet, though. The one that's in a PR and it's going to be merged probably today or tomorrow is the outgoing call UI, which is updated, which is enabled here on me Jitsi. And we have added, as you said, Emil, a Dropbox with the countries that are available, and some checks on the phone numbers that are supported.
We should probably add MD files for how we expect those services to behave, so that other people can do their own interfaces there.
Sure. Yes. I'll add that to my to-do list.
Thank you. And we were going to have some surprises from a layout perspective in the near future, but we're going to keep that a surprise for the near future. All right, let's see. Lubo and Saul, would you like to give us an update from Mobile Land?
Yes, 2 weeks. I think we merged the JSON Web Token support in mobile. I'm almost close to having the Rink overlay, which is GWT powered as well on mobile. And I'm gonna start looking into some stability and just bug fixes. Like currently with the missing data channels, I still see videos, even though I'm in audio only mode. And so can talk about his progress on 58.
I'm sorry, Lubo, I'm not. It's not. You're a little bit too silent.
So we can continue with his progress on 58 and mobile SDK if he wants to.
Yeah, sure.
Would you like to add anything to this?
No, I think the last thing you would say that you didn't get is that due to the lack of the data channel in this particular call, last 10 is not being able, even though you're audio only, he's seeing some videos. Is that what you said, Lubo?
Yeah, but we're gonna fix those things because no.
So anyway, in the past couple of weeks, I worked mostly on the SDKs. So that is, we are making our mobile applications a very, very thin, and by very, very thin, I mean like less than 100 lines of code application that loads a view from an SDK so that other applications can embed it. I have an open PR for iOS, and I'm 90% done on the Android, so there's only 90% left. And I also worked a little bit on this uphill battle towards getting some decent Chrome build working to update from where we were. We seem to be happy with 58, with a couple of backports that are needed for stability purposes so that it doesn't crash like the desktop thing. And probably when we have kind of released it on pre-release, the plugin, and we are internally testing this build ourselves. And when those fixes hit the 58 branch, if we're still happy with them, we'll probably make a build with it, I think. Right, Lubo?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is pretty much from my side.
Yeah, that's all from me.
All right. So, in that, I think with that we can complete status update part of the call, unless anyone else from the team wants to add something. Going once, twice, 3 times. Okay. Open mic. Anything that people would like to discuss?
Well, I've got a request. For Jitsi Meet, you guys are distributing Debian and Ubuntu binaries, the .deb files.
Correct.
And stable in Nightly. Could you guys also add the source builds for that? Because I'm constantly trying to reproduce those, which is somewhat of a pain as I am doing similar stuff for a lot of different projects. And I guess you guys have to do them anyways as part of the nightly cycle that you're already doing. So could you add those files to that download section?
Sorry, I didn't understand the connection with the nightly cycle.
Well, you're building stuff nightly, apparently. So
Sure.
that the binary, the source packaging that's part of the make file is either a very small step in that process or might already be executed but simply not provided as a download.
So can you talk a little bit about what you need from those source packages?
Basically, what I do for the OpenFire plugin that I'm writing is I take that entire source package and now I'm talking about the what is it? Make source package, right? So I take that, I extract it, and I replace the index file with some of my custom code, and that gets shipped as part of the plugin, which also includes the video bridge, Gcofo, and some other components.
If we gave you a good way to map a build to GitHub tags, would that be good enough for you?
I'd like to prevent having to run make source package and not have a virtual machine that has npm and all of the dependencies that it needs.
So you mean the Debian source package? Sorry. Do you do like
No.
apt-get source the
He's
thing?
talking about, we already upload some of the like zip archives for Meet and for the library. I don't think we have them listed on the download page or somewhere. Let's discuss it offline, and I'll show you, and we can add those to the download page so others can use it. But we already, for some of them, I think we already do that.
I was assuming, or I was hoping as much. So that would be a very easy fix for you guys and very helpful for me.
And let's try this as a first step, and then we'll see how far along that gets us.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
All right, thank you. So documentation for mobile clients, that's a question from Henry. Henry, could you maybe talk a little bit more about what sort of documentation you mean exactly? Is it developer documentation, user documentation?
Developer documentation.
For basically building Jitsi Meet
Correct.
for mobile.
Correct.
I think we actually have something out there. So didn't you write something like that?
Yeah, I did. There is a short guide that I wrote, I think, on my third week or something. So unless we broke something, following it should yield to a working build.
So could you please post the link in the chat room?
Yeah.
Sorry, in the chat field.
Got it.
And then, Henry, you also had a question about Jibri. What specifically?
Any update? What to expect with Jibri update?
Oh, for the rewrite, you mean?
Yes.
The first thing would be to just get it to feature parity with the current version of Jibri, and eventually, as you know now, Jibri also can work as a bidirectional thing, so that you actually have Aaron and Boris joined from a SIP device. So Jibri is doing the gatewaying to them. And for some reason, for me, they stay in 180p, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I
think we're not. Well, if data channels don't work, there is no way they're going to ramp up because they're not selected.
Yeah. So one
we
point to
confirm
think
that
about
the data channels are not working?
is,
Yes, it's confirmed.
Okay, Aaron, I'm sorry I interrupted
so
you.
one thing. Yeah, one note about how the Jibri plan is proceeding. The component we plan to replace in Java is just the Jibri kind of control daemon. The rest of it's still going to be exactly as is. So you're going to need a new standalone machine. You're still going to need an FFmpeg. You're still going to need all of the things that current Jibri requires. It's just going to be that the control layer is going to be in Java instead of Python. So not a lot is really changing in that end. It's just going to be more in line with everything else we already do.
We are aware that Jibri is still sort of hard to get running, and we've had for a while a plan to just go and make it to have virtual machines out there that people can download and configure, but time hasn't gotten us closer. There was this discussion about having Docker images. Oh, actually, that wasn't about Jibri even. But the challenge with Docker images is that they probably aren't going to solve all of the installation hassles. So virtual machine images are probably going to be more useful. I suppose.
I honestly think that with the current setup and the new Java, the way we already require certain pieces, we can probably get away with having Debian packages that make the installation at least a little easier. It may not be perfect, but we could at least lead them through some basic dialogues and do some requirements of Debian packages. And I bet we'd get pretty far towards helping people along there.
We could definitely try that. And yeah, now that ALSA loopback is part of Ubuntu, I guess that solves one of the main low-level issues.
Yeah.
So at some point, this is going to come in the next couple of months, I suppose, but no commitment really. It all depends on everything else we do. Thanks, Aaron. So any other questions? No multi-subdomain support. From Henry again. What about it, Henry?
That's for Jibri. Since Aaron was commenting, I was interested in when we might see support for multi-subdomains with Jibri.
Let's talk about what you're talking about, because the changes that we need for multi-subdomain have already dropped for Jibri, and it's really just parsing the conference muck that it gets back from Jakofu upon a request to join a room and concocting a URL that includes a subdomain. So if you want to talk about how to do a deployment of Jitsi with multi-subdomain, we can talk offline about it, but the support needed in Jibri should already be there.
And it's probably worth pointing out that we are actually departing from the notion of subdomains in Jitsi for one main reason, that with WebRTC, when you do a subdomain-based architecture, you basically put yourself in the very bad position to have to do a new Chrome extension for every subdomain that you do for desktop sharing. And the whole point of subdomain was that you could have unlimited subdomains. That was the point of our subdomain support, and that's unachievable basically because of the Chrome extension problem. So we are shifting from a subdomain part to a directory structure where basically your different environments are a directory after the root. But what Aaron said applies to that as well. The support in Jibri should be.
Yeah, the support in Jibri is already there in terms of the parsing out of the subdomain, but the setup includes like a Prosody plugin. It includes some Nginx config. It's a bigger change than just some support in Jibri. So if you're interested in that kind of setup, let's talk about it offline.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, in that case, we can close this week's call, and we'll see you all again in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Hang on.
Yeah. We were planning to talk about GSOC if we have any students here.
Do we have any students online? I think for that part, we should probably turn off the recording to keep those concise, so I'm turning it off now. Unless, is there any reason to keep it on, Boris?
I don't know. We need to think about it, I guess not.
Well, here.